answer to the medical problem. Abortion is an elective procedure. It is never prescribed as a solution to a medical problem. And so we tell people, well, yes, when a mother's life is in danger, we recommend that she gets a second opinion, one, and that she goes to the hospital, because when she's in the hospital, she will receive the proper care that she needs, and she needs to find a doctor that will treat both patients equally, because we have two equal human beings in the scenario, and the doctor needs to treat them equally. And if the doctor needs to perform a procedure that would endanger one of their lives, then the doctor should save the life that can be saved, because we don't value the mother or the baby any more or less than the other. We have two equal human beings. Every human being is created equal. Yes, we've heard this before. We have two equal human beings, and we need to treat them as such. And so people say, but that must be the only scenario. There are statistics that say, yes, abortions are performed less than 1% of the time to save the life of the mother. But we need to remember that the procedure to correct, for example, an ectopic pregnancy, which is life-threatening, is not an abortion. It is a surgical procedure in which they have to go into the fallopian tube or perhaps another place where the baby has started to grow, and that is not an abortion, because we learned what the abortion procedure was yesterday. It's always in the uterus. It's done through forceps being forced into the uterus or sucking the baby out with a cannula. It's never done through surgically where they make an incision in the woman. They are two completely different procedures. Okay, so next we get all of these kind of fringe arguments. Oh, what about the woman's privacy? It's between her and her doctor. You have no business telling women what to do with their bodies. And this gets back to the idea of privacy. Well, yeah, we have the right to do what we want privately, but we never have the right to do something that is inherently wrong or inherently evil in our private life. We don't tell people, well, okay, rape is wrong, but if you want to do that privately, we won't say anything about that, right? What about Ariel Castro? He was holding 3 women captive in his house privately. He boarded up the windows so nobody saw. Was that okay? No! We went in. The police raided his house. They took the girls out. They gave him life. And that was not okay, even though it was private. We as a country do not condone evil acts privately. Oh, and then another thing. We can say this is affecting us. Yes, this is a private decision. Yes, this is a decision that a mother makes between her and her doctor, but the fact of the matter is that abortion affects everybody. This is affecting our generation, and it affects us in the way of knowing family members are missing. It affects us psychologically, it affects us emotionally, it affects us socially, and it affects us economically. Every way that you can think of it affecting us, it does. So while people claim this is a private decision, abortion affects us. And because it affects us, we have the right to talk about it as well. We have the right to end it because it is negatively affecting us and our society. Okay, the baby isn't conscious yet. Well, it can't really think, it doesn't really know it exists. It won't know the difference if you kill it. If I faint and I'm unconscious for 15 seconds or so, does that mean during those 15 seconds I am for some reason not human? No, that makes no sense whatsoever. Just because somebody is unconscious does not mean they are somehow another species or less valuable or less human. So people say, well, when the baby develops consciousness, then it must not be okay to kill it. Maybe it's okay to kill the baby up until it becomes conscious. This is really, really gray area. There's no way for us to measure consciousness because, one, there's no way to measure it per brainwaves because we can detect brainwaves, but who's to say what kind of brainwaves indicate consciousness? And then the definition of consciousness is really loose, and everybody develops at a different rate. So are we going to go and test brainwaves on every pregnant woman and say, okay, now your baby's human, and now your baby's human, and your baby's not human yet because we haven't detected consciousness? It makes no sense whatsoever. There's no way that we can clearly define when consciousness begins. And because there's no way to clearly define that, it is an unfair definition of humanity. It is absolutely arbitrary. Okay, people bring up embryonic stem cell research. Are you against that too? And the answer is yes. We are against Anything that would kill a human being before it is born. Yes, we are against any method of killing innocent human beings from the moment of conception. At the moment of conception, even when the baby is a blastocyst or zygote, it is a human being. It has human DNA. It has unique human DNA. We all started as one cell. So embryonic stem cell research is research by which they have to kill embryos. We believe that the embryonic stage of development is a stage of human development. Therefore, the embryo is a human being, and we do not have the right to kill human beings for scientific gain. So the way to compare this, we get back to comparing this to a born human being. I could say, hey, you know what, that's a really good point. I'm doing some research, and I think that I could cure cancer with some stem cells that can only be harvested if I kill Rebecca. So I'm going to kill Rebecca and harvest her stem cells because it's going to save so many hundreds more people, maybe even thousands. Is it okay for me to kill Rebecca? No. People, if they are being honest with themselves and honest with you, will most likely say, well, no, it's different. She's already born. And that gets you back to SLED. Well, what's the difference between her and a baby that's not born, that's in the womb? Okay, this is the last one, I think. Forced morality. Well, you think it's wrong, and that's okay, but you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me it's wrong. If I don't think it's wrong, then it must not be wrong, because you have your morality and I have my morality, and they're different, and that's okay. I've heard that before. Okay, this is called moral relativism, and it's a crock. Morality, if something is right or wrong, then it's right or wrong. The definition of right or wrong means that it is universally right or wrong. Anthropologically speaking, one of the things that most cultures in the entire world, no matter what their faith background is, they can agree that killing innocent human beings is wrong. No matter where their faith lies, what their cultural history is, cultures that have never interacted with each other, that is a definition of kind of universal morality, in that most people throughout the world agree that killing innocent human being is wrong. And if people are saying that they don't agree with that, they are not being honest. Because there is something inside of us, it's called natural law, it's written on our hearts. There's something inside of us, we could say a conscience, but some people don't believe that exists, that tells us that certain things are wrong. There's something inside of us that tells us that rape is wrong. There's something inside of us that tells us that abusing people, abusing children is wrong. And you can just tell them, well, what tells you that that's wrong? And if you believe it's okay to kill innocent human being, one, let me know if you're being honest, because I need to call the police, because I'm pretty sure you should be locked up. Or two, you're not being honest, and perhaps we should revisit this conversation at a later date, or we should visit why you want to deny that fact. So when you get to forced morality and moral relativism, that's along the same lines as animal rights. They go together. People are like, well, what about, would you do that? What about the dogs? Why aren't you out saving the dogs? What about the whales? Why aren't you out saving them? And the fact of the matter is that human beings are valuable. If we do not have human beings, then we cannot protect animals. So we can just ask them, okay, let's say a dog was walking in the street and got hit by a car. We would be pretty traumatized. That would be really, really gruesome to watch. Okay, that would be bad. If we saw a 2-year-old walking in the street and got hit by a car, we would be infinitely more traumatized. That would be really bad. And there would be a lot more done for the family of that child than whoever the dog's owner is. We recognize, even politically, socially, legally, we recognize there's more value to a child than to an animal. This is just to get you off topic. So we can say, okay, what do you think about puppy abortions? People think that's absolutely horrible. We would never do that to a dog. Okay, then let's get back to humans. What do you think about abortion? What do you think about human abortions? And that just goes along with forced morality. When people equate animals with humans, they are getting into moral relativism. Okay, these are objections to the graphic images. And these are in here just so that you know what to expect when you're on the street. And they say, what if the kids see? And Uncle Don might actually address this in his session later this afternoon. But we get this all the time, and this is just, again, just like an off-topic question. These are excuses to not have to address the truth about abortion. If people are worried about their kids or other kids seeing, what is crazy is that more commonly we get people coming up that are worried about other kids that they don't even know. But there are kids here. Look at those people with their kids. I'm so worried about them. And they have no responsibility or connection whatsoever to those kids. It's just an excuse. It's just an excuse to say, I don't have to pay attention to you because I found a chink in your argument. You're not worried about these kids over there. And the fact of the matter is that what we have seen in our experience is that kids are not traumatized. If they see something wrong with the images, they recognize that it's an injustice and they always ask, what happened to the baby? Kids always recognize that the image is a baby and there is something wrong with the baby, and they ask, what happened to the baby? And they are more traumatized when they see their parents freaking out and not doing anything to help the baby because they're confused. There's a disconnect because their instant response is what happened to the baby, and then their parents are freaking out and not doing anything to help the baby, and they're wondering why their parents aren't helping the baby. Okay. And people will come up also and say, I had an abortion. Now, this is a legitimate issue. We will be running into people every day that have had abortions. 1 in 4 women will have had abortion by the time they're like 40, I think. So when women come up to you and say they've had an abortion, our job is to show them the love and mercy of Christ because we want them to get healing. And when we're on the street and we're talking to 100 people a day, we don't have the time to get them all the healing they need in those couple of minutes that we can talk to them. So connect them with resources to Rachel's Vineyard, Silent No More. If there's post-abortive healing in the area, I know Project Defending Life has resources. Connect them to those resources and say, you are not alone. The way you feel is not you're not the only one that feels that way. Because women suffer from post-abortive, it's PID, post-abortion, it's some kind of disorder. It's equated with PTSD, and they can't even diagnose it. They have to diagnose it. When a woman goes in for counseling, if she's getting insurance for counseling, they actually have to diagnose it as PTSD or depression, because there's no psychological diagnosis for post-abortive disorder. So, post-abortive syndrome, PAS. So we need to direct them to the proper resources for post-abortive counseling. And we tell them, you are not alone. The way you feel is natural because you lost a baby. We acknowledge that that was wrong, but you don't have to do it again. You can choose to make a change right now, and you can choose to go get help. Okay, so in the end, when people are we've got moral relativism, they've denied the humanity of the child, they're not being honest, or maybe they just don't want to listen to you and they're taking you off topic and you've been talking to them for a while and they will not accept the truth, they will not stay on topic, and they will not even admit to the humanity of the preborn. Remember that we cannot argue someone into seeing the truth or valuing human life. If they are that obstinate and that hardened, then there is nothing that we can do. There's nothing humanly possible to open their eyes, and it's not like we can go up to them and peel the scales off of their eyelids. We need to pray. So remember to choose your battles wisely. This is where tact comes into play. When people are arguing just for the sake of arguing, and they're refusing to be honest and refusing to acknowledge the truth about abortion, then it's time to end the conversation. If people are telling you, yes, I do believe it's okay to kill human beings, it's time to end the conversation because you will not get any further. And remember that we need to, in love, tell them, okay, well, that makes me really uncomfortable, so it's time to end the conversation. When you think it's okay to kill human beings, I'm sorry, that's where we're going to have to end, because there's nothing we can do. We need to go and pray for that person. We need to pray for their conversion, and maybe the next pro-lifer they run into will be able to convince them. So one of the biggest tools you'll have, one of the hardest things to learn as a pro-life activist, is when to walk away. because it's very, very easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if I could just stay 5 more minutes, if I can just talk to them for 2 more minutes, if I can just share this one more point with them, if I could just stay at the abortion mill just a half hour longer, I will save that one more life. And the fact of the matter is that we as humans are not doing any of this work in and of ourselves. It is all God.